said, nah, I'm going to stand right where I'm at with my balls and my guns out. And then I said, you can stand behind me if you're afraid.
Did he hit you back?
No, I don't think he will. Fuck the government, by the way. Like, you don't owe these people. They're your fucking employees. We are not subjects of a fucking kingdom. We are citizens of a constitutional republic. Fuck these motherfuckers. You don't owe them any of your money. You don't owe them any of your fucking liberty. God damn it, man.
That's nuts, man.
It's pretty nuts, but the only reason it happens is because people allow it to happen. That's it. Like every time you tell these motherfuckers no, and to be honest, this guy should file civil complaints, sue the ATF and the Delaware State Police for.
They think they know it. I've been praying for somebody to save me. No one's heroic in my life, don't even matter. I know it, I know it. I know I'm hurt deep down, but can't show it. I never had a place to call my own. I never had a home. Ain't nobody calling my phone. Where you been? Where you at? What's on your mind? They say every life precious, but nobody
All right, welcome back to the Death by Tyranny podcast. It's been a little bit, but we gotta keep on keeping on. I heard a good quote. We'll start the conversation off with that, and I think it's a pretty good quote, but I couldn't tell you where it's from, and I actually think it's been around for a really long time. But it starts out with a man in a well. He's trapped down there, can't find his way out, and a doctor passes him. He yells for help, the man in the well. The doctor approaches, and the man asks in the well, "Doctor, can you help me?" So the doctor says, "Sure, I can help you." He writes him a prescription and throws it into the well. Then later on, a preacher walks past the well. The man in the well hollers up to him, "Preacher, can you help me?" Preacher says, "Absolutely, I can help you." Says a prayer for him, walks away. Well, then his friend passes the well, and he yells up to him, "My friend, can you help me?" And the friend jumps in the well, and the man in the well says to his friend, "That was stupid. Now we're both stuck down here." And the friend replies, "Yes, but I know the way out." And I think that has a really good message. There's a lot of people out there that are in a point in time in their life where they might not know how to move on to the next. The way society is today, you don't really see people helping each other along. They would much rather put other people down so that they feel better about themselves. And if you can take something that troubles you or has troubled you in the past and not only learn from it, but teach from it, then you're helping two people, yourself and the person you're teaching. Now, the reason I bring this quote up and mention that is because we're really starting to bicker with each other. I noticed this a couple of years ago, and I thought maybe with the internet being what it is today, we would have more people reaching out to one another and helping. But instead, all we've really used it for is to further divide each other. And not only just further divide each other, but also to argue amongst each other about stuff that really doesn't matter. And I think it's becoming abundantly very clear that something is going on. Every day it seems like something new is pushing us towards something worse. We don't know if it's going to be World War III with China. We don't know if China's going to take Taiwan. We keep hearing about things that our leadership in this country is doing that is wrong, that at any other point in time in history, at least America's history, we would have done something about it. The newest one is Biden taking bribes from non-American associates for whatever reason, and that's treason. At any of the first 100 years of this country, it would have not only been called out as treason, but it would have been punished as treason. You have Fauci amongst other World Health Associates pull over one of the worst schemes in the world. Not in just the history of America or in the last couple of years, but in the world of all times. And a lot of the conspiracies, and we need not call them conspiracy theories anymore because they've been proven true. So then they are just conspiracies. And now let's not let the word conspiracy lose its meaning like we have with so many other words today. But an actual conspiracy was multiple conspiracies. Took over the world for the better part of 2 years, and in some cases it's still ongoing. So we have that to look back to, and we should not forget. But it feels like there's more. And I'm not trying to minimize what they did with COVID, but it just always feels like something's around the corner that is awful is going to happen. And so I've been, I'm sure with many other people, trying to figure out what this is. And there's quite a few things, but what is that thing that we all feel in the back of our necks? If you've seen the show Stranger Things, where the hair stands up on the back of their necks when the evil or whatever that's supposed to be gets closer to them, that's kind of how we all feel. And I can't speak for abroad, but at least in the United States, the people that I'm watching, the people that I'm listening to, the people that I conversate with, none of them can deny that, and a lot of them are bringing it to the forefront. Some of them really want to figure out what this is because they're afraid, and some of them want to figure out what it is so they can try to stop it. But I don't think we know what it is yet. So I've been trying to figure this out, and I think it could be a lot simpler than we're making it out to be. Now, I think what's really happening here is you cannot have darkness with light. You know, a room can be dark, but as soon as you open the door and a little bit of light slips past it, it will illuminate that room to some degree, thus for not making it dark anymore. So you can't have one and the other. And I think this plays a huge part in that something bad that we feel is around the corner is because we are being forced to live with darkness. Now, we always have to some extent, but it's just getting so overwhelming that our spidey sense, for lack of better terms, is always on guard. No matter what we're doing, we feel like, man, something bad is going to happen. Well, that's probably because there's evil, there's darkness somewhere close to you. And if you're genuinely a good person, you should have that feeling. And to speak a little bit further on that, you should want to do something about it. And I know a lot of people have brought up the conversation about, the next civil war, what it's going to look like, why it can't happen, why it can happen. And I think it most definitely can happen. And a lot of people say it won't look like what we historically view civil wars to look like. And I think that's obvious for multiple reasons. We have new technology. We're in a new age. There's much more people. There's more different people in an isolated area. It is going to be dramatically different. I think that is almost on a factual level that the next civil war will most definitely look like something we've never encountered before. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Now, I can't say it's factual, but the one thing that is factual is that America won't last forever. And it would be naive to think that we live in the best part of its lifetime. If America ended tomorrow, the people reading the book America, would we be the best part in that book? I don't think so. Now, maybe that depends on the context you're putting it in. If you're talking about technology and healthcare and all of these things, you might be able to come up with an argument that we do live in the best time in America. But I don't think that's the point. I think if you were reading the book America, you would want to know from stories or whatever in the future that they would hear about America's glory, the freedom, the liberty, the republic. That's what you would want to read. That would be the best part of the book. So, what part of America's timeline was the best for freedom, for liberty, for the republic? And I think if you really put it in that context, and I think that is the most important context in which the book America would be about, I really don't think that our timeline now would be the best part. In fact, I think if you're looking at it from a history standpoint, it looks more like the end in a story than the beginning or the best part. And that's sad. So I think that's also why we feel that danger that creeps around us. Now, I think the other reason is because what we're being forced to deal with right now. We see news clippings, and I don't very much care for when something terrible happens to be exploited for someone's purpose or their goals or their means to an end. I think that's bad. And that'll get into the next part a little bit. But there are all kinds of bad things happening to good people around the entire world. And that's because you have so many leaders of countries letting in immigrants illegally without going through the right process, the process in which the past would prove to bring in good quality of people into your country. This is kind of, we're kind of in the era of a do whatever and all out free for all on borders, on multiple different levels, to the countries, to the states. And the problem with that is because all of these terrible events that happen, you don't see a lot of Americans perpetrating these high violence scenarios, these unbelievable amounts of evil. You don't see Americans doing it to other Americans. You don't see Canadians doing it to, well, that's not true. Canadians are doing horrible things to other Canadians. But as for the rest of the world, it's not so much that way. It's usually a Syrian refugee goes on a stabbing spree. It's usually a South American hurting Americans, something along those lines. Yet the leadership in these countries are allowing it to happen. And it's going to continue to happen because it is in our nature to have empathy and to care for others. So the process into which to stop something like that is going to be very painful. Very painful for our society to just stand by and do nothing. To see all of the potential, all of the potential good people be caught up in the wave of being ejected out of the countries in which they choose to seek asylum or whatever they call it these days. That's not going to be a pretty thing to watch or have to hear about every day on the news. The deportation of illegals. It's actually going to be very dramatic, and it's probably going to have some kind of negative effects with the way our youth moves on from that point. But I think the negative consequences will be minimal compared to the good things that will happen and the bad things that are happening now that will stop. So yeah, that's what I think that feeling's for. So I know it's not as general or it's more general than people would hope for, but it's the fact that we have to live with evil all around us. And the evil is so close that the people who are trying to be the light can't function. You have this rift between the two trying to be in one spot at the same time, and it just can't happen. I used to have this mindset where I would think, we should be able to sit in a room and disagree with someone and still be somewhat civil, if not even friends. Well, I think that as aggressive as we have become with our politics, that is no longer the case. You can not have someone who is trying to promote good in the world with their politics be friends with someone who is trying to do evil with their politics. And so it just can't be. There cannot be both. And it's to the point where earlier on in America's history, the progressive side had its purpose. And its conservative side also had a purpose. One would think new and beyond what is being done, and one would make sure that we preserve enough that if we fail, we can continue. But that is no longer the case. There is an abundance of data in the last 50 years that one party is doing, for the most part, good for the country, and the other one is tearing it apart. And it's so bad that it's infecting our children, so it seems like 50% of the country wants one thing and 50% of the country wants another, but that just isn't the way. And if you are to believe that, then you should believe that 50% of this country wants it to continue and 50% of it does not. And I don't believe that. I think the majority of us want it to continue. And so we must not let the youth grow up thinking that this is the case. That if you are one side of the aisle, you wish for this country to be over, and if you are on the other side of this aisle, you wish to this country to continue. So how do we combat that? How do we make sure that the youth that is growing today doesn't view the parties in that way? Well, unfortunately, and this brings me to the next segment, is we are, and in my opinion, we are insane. All of us in this country are insane because we are doing the same thing and we continue to think that it will have different outcomes. When all we have to do is look at the party. Look at the side of the aisle that is doing so much damage to this country. Look how far it has fallen so quickly. What they are doing is working. So if the only thing we do is stand on the other side of the aisle and tell them what they are doing is wrong and expect that to work when it has shown time and time again that it does not work, then we are all insane. So we must start to look at the things that the progressives and this woke ideology has used, its tactics that is working to infect our youth, to divide our states, to destroy our inner cities. We must dissect those tactics and start to turn them on their head. Use them against the ones promoting all this evil in our country. Now, that's a lot more complex than you think it is. It isn't as easy as do whatever they're doing. It isn't that simple. But what they have been doing is they've made sure that they are in positions of power. This one will take time. But another thing they are doing is they are making sure that what they say, what they believe, their morals, are also shared with the people around them. And these are general concepts of their morals. And they have grown so powerful with this technique that they have been able to really fine-tune it to where those morals aren't even that general anymore. They are taking well-known facts and being able to prove them as fallacy because they have made the people that agree with them on some things also indoctrinate the things that they were kind of on the fence about. And I think this is what we need to do in two communities for sure. The religious Christianity communities, we have to start out like these progressives did, where we're no longer bickering amongst Catholics and Protestants and Baptists. We must all decide to come together and say, look, we believe that the pathway, the only way to righteousness, to be accepted into the heavenly gates, as we are all sinners, is through Jesus Christ. Let it be that's the baseline. And if someone believes that, we should not shun them. I was listening to a guy the other day, and he said, what if it's the case that God has made it to where not one portion of Christianity knows the truth, but that many of them have small truths within them that make up the bigger truth? And I think that might be the case. At least that's what we need to do going forward. Not only will that impact us in numbers, but it will impact our reach to others if we stop the bickering amongst ourselves. It looks very childish, and a lot of people take advantage of it, and it's very, it can be very close-minded and kind of blinded from people who want to do harm or use Christianity as a way to profit theirself. It's almost a tyranny of Christianity. So we have to be careful with that. And then the firearm community is another one. We all must come to the understanding that the baseline is that we all have the right to keep and bear arms. And that doesn't mean that you can tell somebody else that they are allowed to own one thing and other people are allowed to own another. So what we must start doing, what progressives have done for a while now, where other progressives will bejudge another one and say, you're not a progressive. Okay, you believe that being gay is okay, but you don't believe that a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy. Therefore, you are not progressive. We must take that ideology when it comes to the Second Amendment. When you have Democrats, anybody really, who come up to you and say, well, I think people should own handguns for personal protection, but they shouldn't be allowed to own fully automatic machine guns, etc., etc. No. You don't get to tell me that you support the Second Amendment, because I know that's not what the Second Amendment means. You can say it and have it come out of your mouth, but you will not get the satisfaction of me believing a lie. So you're either with us or you're against us. That's it. There is no bartering here. There is no common ground. The level that we all must meet in the beginning is that we can own whatever firearm is necessary, and that makes us capable to preserve our lives and the ones we love. You do not get a say-so in what that is. You either believe that or you don't. And once we are able to come to that understanding, and we can use those tactics that the progressives have used for years and did a great job with it, especially during COVID, the shaming. The public shaming is what got 90% of America to comply with the rules of COVID. Even if they were only able to manage to brainwash 50% of the country during COVID, they were still able to make the other 40% of those people bend the knee just out of shame. They knew what the politicians and leadership in this country were doing was wrong, but they didn't say anything. They didn't do anything. They followed suit. They stood in line because they didn't want to be publicly shamed. Well, that works two ways. It always has. That's why if you read the book America, hundreds of years from now, you will see that this is not the best timeline in the book. It's because only the evil people in this country used the tools that actually work to get a society to function the way that it needs to. And so instead of that society being shamed into doing good, they are shamed into doing evil. And that's where we are at today. You know how easy it would be if we got conservative leadership to understand that the baseline, the level in which you must meet people who support the Second Amendment is you do not get to say what I'm allowed to own to protect myself when it comes to firearms. If we shamed leadership, the politicians, into that in which they could only speak out in public to say that, we would be winning the war on the Second Amendment. But instead, we are losing it because what happens is an evil person illegally obtains firearms in most cases, and in which case they don't obtain them illegally. They manipulate the system until they get the firearm, and then they do the evil shit. Their intentions were evil the whole time. And then the wokes and the progressives, they shame the conservatives and the Republican politicians into giving up the war on the Second Amendment, into giving a little bit more every time. And many of us have told you they will never stop until they completely take it. And now you have the governor of California trying to make a new rule in the Constitution that makes the second null and void. That's how bad we are losing this war. And it's for the simple fact that we believe to be conservative somehow has translated into live and let live. Well, that is a libertarian mindset. That is just not the way reality works. It sounds good. I wish that could be the case, but it is not the case. In the old days, when there was no law enforcement, when there was no big daddy government, if someone was to come into your town and do evil, you couldn't always handle that yourselves. You had to go get your neighbors and your friends and form some kind of posse and hunt these people down and bring them to justice. And we don't do that anymore. The conservatives have been brainwashed into thinking like libertarians. Well, that doesn't make you a very good conservative, does it? And if you wish to conserve this country, you might want to start thinking more or less the lines of a conservative. You can always have aspirations to be what this fairy tale dreamland that libertarians believe in. Sure, we can work towards something like that, but I promise you we will see in very quick time, in fact, that just isn't always the case. It doesn't mean that we can't live with libertarians. That's one of the ideologies we can bring into the fold. They can be the new progressives. The new progressives are libertarians. They can be the ones to push us to try to always continue to not stand still, but to move forward, to make things better, to make things freer as a country, to bring more liberty to more people. But sometimes you have to know when to chill the fuck out. Sometimes you have to know that, yeah, it'd be cool to fucking fly, but guess what? We weren't made to fly, and we're just not going to. That's just the way it is. So, I think that's going to be all today. Try to keep that in mind. You're not crazy. It's not that we are stuck in the age of conspiracy theories. It's that there are so many conspiracies going on that it can't help to make our little fragile minds constantly turn and think about what's the next conspiracy that we will say out loud, into which it makes us look almost like fortune tellers. It's really ridiculous at this point. And when you think that something around the corner is going to happen that is bad or evil, well, that's because evil is all around us. And it's getting closer. And it's doing more evil shit every single day. So you are not crazy. You are not a conspiracy theorist. You are a realist. And if you feel in which that this whole fucking game we're playing in the United States right now is rigged against you, well, like I said, you're not crazy. It's just the way it is. And we don't have to like each other as long as we agree to fight for good and for more freedom for more people in this country. Then we can set that shit aside and do like the progressives in this country do, and work together to help shame the other half of the country into doing what must be done to make sure this country continues on being this country and not just a book in a classroom in the future on the shelf, in which I promise you, no matter what we do from this day forward, we will not read that book and look back and think, man, June 2023 was the best time in America. That will never be the case because it is not. It is not factual. Not in the lifetime of freedom in America. Not in the lifetime of liberty or the republic. But with that, guys, where are we at? 38 minutes? That's good. Love you guys. Stay safe. God bless. America first. Peace, y'all.